Welcome to the Nomad Salkantay Trek guide to Machu Picchu, one of the most adventurous destinations in all of Peru that I happen to do with the fantastic mega expeditions, which I highly recommend checking out if you have the time. Now, some general information about the Salkantay Trek is that it takes about 5 days and 4 nights and spans across 72 kilometers, with the highest peak being about 4,600 meters that you will actually climb to, and the lowest being about 1,550 meters above sea level. Now, this part of the video is very important as it goes over the things you absolutely must know that don't necessarily include what you are doing day to day. These are things that you need to have prepared in your mind before you head down there. And the first thing that you need to know is that you will either have to rent or bring your own sleeping bag. Now, these aren't normal sleeping bags. These are clearly ones that you can go in and actually sleep in pretty cold temperatures, because at night when you are camping, you are in a tent and you are at that high altitude. It doesn't even matter if it's summer down there, it's gonna get pretty cold, and you gotta make sure that you're feeling a-okay. Next, the first 2 nights you are actually going to be spending in tents, and the last 2 nights you will be spending in hostels. So be prepared for both, kind of like chilling out with some roommates as well as chilling in your tent late at night. You will also have the option to have mules carry your stuff. That's what I did. I carried most of my camera gear with me during the day, and then all my clothing and all my accessories and everything else I left on the mules. Next, these are the clothing that you're going to have to bring, which include a rain jacket, a warm puffy jacket. I do recommend getting a hoodie if you can, a nice hat, nice cap, as well as like a toque if you're Canadian. If you're not Canadian, that's just like a winter hat. You're going to need some good hiking pants, and I highly recommend a serious pair of hiking boots, as you're going to be trekking through water, rocks. Make sure you don't roll your ankles, because those things, they're important. Another thing that's important to know is that your passport is actually going to be your main source of identification. So you are going to need it on the trek, as especially at Machu Picchu, to get your ticket, you're going to have to show them your passport, as well as to get into the trek itself. And then a few obvious ones: bring lots of toilet paper. Make sure you got one in your bag, because nobody wants to use the Inca toilet. You want to be able to, take care of yourself. Important, always bring 2-ply, as well as plenty of sunscreen and insect repellent, as it can get pretty bright and pretty buzzing down there. And then lastly, pack plenty of snacks, bring lots of water. Make sure you bring a metal water bottle if you can, because a lot of people leave their plastic water bottles kind of scattered along the trail, and it's kind of just unpleasant to see. So if you can't keep it a little bit clean, bring a metal water bottle that you can just refill. And there's also snack stops as well as water stops along the way, and little shops that you can go to purchase those things. The last little bit of preparation information is every meal will include a coca tea, a juice, a soup, and a different main course every single time. There are vegetarian options if that's also what you're looking for. You can request those before you get there, and they'll make them for you. There's a few vegetarians with us, and they seem to enjoy their stuff as well. And lastly, wake-up call is usually around 5 a.m. The hikes are pretty long, they're pretty intense, and we're going to jump into what you should expect for day 1. Now, day 1 begins with you getting picked up at your hostel, your hotel, or wherever you are in Cusco between 4:30 and 5 a.m., and you will head on a bus, on a shuttle, and head right into the mountains right away. Kind of like the Inca Jungle Trek, if you saw that as well. At around 7 a.m., after a couple hours of driving, you will arrive at the town of Moyepata, and you will just kind of get a chance to chill, snack a little bit, fuel up if you really need to, use a bathroom, whatever. And that's kind of where you get the first opportunity to get some nice photos. There's a couple good ones there. After breakfast, you will leave for the hike at 9:30 in the morning, and one of the first things that you will do with your guide is they will actually give you some coca leaves to try, and the coca leaves are said to clear the mind as well as make you a bit more alert. And honestly, I really enjoyed them. Probably not the best tasting, but you can get some good benefits out of them, and it's said that the Incans used those coca leaves for many years to endure these long hikes and help with altitude sickness. The next about 3 hours of hiking will be pretty intense and tiring, especially if you haven't done things like this before or been to high altitude elevations. But some of the most gorgeous views of Salkantay Mountain and the mountain range in the Andes will be found right here on day 1. I'll just put in some of my favorite photos right here. I honestly think this was probably the best start to any hike I've ever had. So along the trek we have several stops where we catch our breaths, get some water, grab some snacks, but I have to say that I've yet to have a break on a hike that has ever had a view quite like what's in front of me, which is honestly nuts. After you're done hiking those 3 hours, you'll arrive at the town, or you'll arrive at the little campsite called Sorey Pampa, and you'll have lunch there with your crew, and it's one of the best chances you'll get to kind of just meet everybody. Oftentimes when you do these trips, you're going to be traveling with anywhere from 5 to sometimes 12 or more people, and along the way, hiking with them, it's a great chance to meet them, get to know them, but lunch is really the first time where everybody gets to sit down together and just discuss kind of what's up. After lunch, you're gonna go on a small hike, but this small hike is really intense. It's really steep. I think it's only about 1 kilometer long. And you're gonna be going to Amantay Lake, which is one of the most beautiful areas in all of Peru. It's a gorgeous lake right at the top of the mountain, and I'll play a bit of footage from there because I personally really loved it. After your time at the lake, then it's time to descend back down to Sorey Pampa. You're then going to be able to have a chance to have dinner, kind of eat everything, go over everything, and then you got some free time to kind of do whatever you want. My boy Taryn and David, they decided to do a bit of astrophotography, and I'll put in a couple of their photos right here that turned out beautiful right there at the mountains. And that kind of wraps it up for day one. Then you're going to go right to bed. You wake up at 5 a.m. the next day, you begin day 2, which is a pretty intense, far and away the most difficult day of the entire trek, as you're planned to hike about 23 kilometers total, as well as the first 5 kilometers is a pure ascent that you basically begin at 6 in the morning after breakfast. So you're going to be woken up with some coca tea, eat breakfast, you're going to be pretty tired, you just got to get right into it. Now there is a very long break between when you have breakfast and when you have lunch, so I would actually recommend, if you don't have snacks, the day prior on day 1, see if you can actually stack up on some snacks and water at whatever shops or little spots that you go to really prepare yourself. You've got, I think it's 7 hours or so until you actually make it to your lunch spot, depending on the pace that you're walking. And it's, like I said, it's really intense. The first 5 kilometers has a 768 meter ascent, and at that high altitude, when you're going to be arriving at around 4,600 meters, which is day 2 is going to also be the highest point that you will make it to, it's going to be tough. But this is also where you're going to have the best chance to really explore through glaciers and photograph glaciers and really see what it's like to be at just as close as you can get on this trip to the top of a mountain. Far and away, this was the highest I had ever been above sea level. It's not easy. I do recommend that you have at least a base level of fitness before you head out, as it can be pretty grueling. But again, you go through challenges and then you get to the top, and it is the most rewarding, intense, and beautiful feeling. And when you're there, you get to see Salkantay Lake, which is this gorgeous blue lake that I didn't even know existed before I went on the trip, and another spot to get some really interesting photos. And then your guide will take you, and you will be able to actually sit down, relax, kind of on the rocks at the top, and go through a ritual for the Pachamama. And the Pachamama means Mother Nature, and it is a very old Incan belief, as well as modern today, that everything that we do for the world, Mother Nature gives to us. And I think that's an important lesson. You kind of go through with a little bit of beer, some coca leaves, and kind of set up this ritual, and it was a very peaceful and meditative kind of end to the ascent that we were going through. And honestly, it was truly one of the most beautiful parts of culture on the trip. So after you're done the Pachamama ritual, then you're descending down for 2 hours until you get to your lunch spot, and right after lunch you're descending down for another 4 hours. So you got about a total of 6 hours of descent. And if descent sounds a lot easier, it might be a little bit easier on your cardio, but it can be pretty intense as well. I've said intense a bunch of times in this video, but you're going to be walking down not crazy steep, but oftentimes a bit of rough terrain, which can be challenging. That's why I also recommend nice hiking boots so that you can really protect your ankles, and hopefully you get to your campsite before sundown. We kind of arrived just after sunset, which I think was around 6:30 in the evening, so you've got about 12 hours of hiking that day, which is why I really emphasize, be prepared. It's going to be tough, but it's the most rewarding and incredible day, and by the end, you're going to be so tired, you're going to hit the snooze button real easy. Now because day 2 is a lot more difficult, day 3 is pretty easy. So you're gonna wake up around 7 in the morning, which is probably the most you'll sleep in on this trek. And then you hike for about 3 hours. You'll chill at this lunch spot that you kind of got. A lot of people ended up playing soccer or football wherever you're from down there. It's a really great spot for a lot of the companies and a lot of the people that do the Salkantay Trek kind of meet there, which it's a nice centralized spot. Hiking just a little bit further, then you're gonna take a bus to Santa Teresa. When you get there, you're gonna arrive at your first hostel. You're gonna chill out for a little bit. You're gonna relax. You're gonna, have a roommate or two, and then you're gonna head right to the hot springs, which is very similar to the Inca Jungle Trek, and you're gonna be able to chill there in the hot springs, relax your tired muscles for the rest of the day until you go to dinner. Now, day 4 and 5 are the exact same as the Inca Jungle Trek. So if you saw that video before, it's pretty much the exact same thing. So you basically begin the day having the choice between 2 options. You can either hike, and I think it's about 9 to 11 kilometers, so a pretty decent hike to start your morning, to where our lunch spot is going to be, or you can do what I opted to do, which was go on the zip lining. And the zip lining is honestly amazing. You go upside down, you spin around, you got some rock climbing, you got some teetering bridges, you've got everything. It is honestly supremely spectacular. Best zip lining I've ever done, which is why I personally recommend it. But if you want to save a little bit of money, even though it's not very expensive, and just do the hiking, that's your prerogative. That's your option as well. After that, go to lunch, and then you're heading to Aguas Calientes. Like I always say, the footsteps of Machu Picchu. It's where you probably wanted to come to Peru in the first place for. A lot of people decide to go to Aguas Calientes by train. You decided to go on the Salkantay Trek, which is in my eyes a much more rewarding and fulfilling experience because it's challenging, it's beautiful, it's incredible, and you meet some more people that way as well. And then day 5, you've got your ticket, you've got your time, and you're heading up to Machu Picchu. You're going to explore one of the 7 wonders of the world. You're going to be heading to one of the most beautiful places, one of the most postcard specific destinations on planet Earth. And honestly, there's probably in my eyes no more enjoyable way to get there than the Salkantay Trek. I loved both the Salkantay and the Inca Jungle Trek, but I'm a guy that loves challenge, and so the Salkantay just provided a little bit more difficulty, especially on day 2, which is why I think it's going to be getting the #1 spot for me, especially if you check out my top 5 Cusco guide here or here. You'll see Salkantay is #1. I really want to thank the Lazy Llama crew that we had. Unbelievable group of people. I want to thank Mega Expeditions, who was honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. I highly recommend Mega if you have the chance to go to Peru. Extremely affordable costs, great service. You can talk to Nixon. I've left the WhatsApp, the website, as well as the email and contact information for you to check out any of their tours. And I really want to thank you for watching this, because I am really trying to take YouTube a lot more seriously this 2020, and some of that starts with people that actually take the time to watch my goofy face talk like this. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little Salkantay guide, and I hope to see you next time, as I do have a little bit of Peru stuff and then a lot of Europe stuff coming up. So thank you, cheers, peace, and goodbye.